On a Thursday afternoon, an unforeseen encounter with my stepsister Anne sparked what became the most exhilarating yet unsettling day of my life. The quiet of the house was broken only by the steady ticking of the grandfather clock in the main room. I was alone, idly flipping through television channels, trying to dispel the heavy boredom that enveloped me like a dense fog. My father and his wife Catherine were out running errands, leaving just Anne and me at home. Typically, I relish having the house to myself. But lately, things had shifted. Anne and I, despite being nearly the same age, had never truly connected. We're starkly different. She's meticulous and detail-oriented, while I lean toward a more relaxed, spontaneous way of living. That day, with my father and Catherine gone, Anne and I were alone in the house. Usually, this wouldn't bother me, but this time felt different. Anne and I have never been close, despite our similar ages. She's highly organized, always with a plan, while I prefer a freer, more impromptu approach to life. Our interactions were typically limited to brief hellos, maintaining a comfortable distance. But in recent weeks, I'd noticed a change in her behavior. Her gaze would linger on me a moment longer than usual, and she seemed to be in my space more often, standing just a touch too close for comfort. The shift was subtle, barely noticeable, yet I sensed something had changed. We'd reverted to our usual reserved dynamic, only speaking when necessary. But I couldn't shake the feeling that her eyes were on me more frequently, her presence feeling almost too near. That day, as I stood in the kitchen scrolling through my phone, sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over the room. I tried to ignore the strange energy that seemed to permeate the air whenever Anne was near. I assumed she'd been in her room all day, but the sound of footsteps behind me signaled her approach. "Hey," I said, sensing an unspoken tension between us that afternoon. I was still in the kitchen, my phone in hand, the sunlight bathing the room in a pleasant warmth. I tried to dismiss the odd atmosphere that always seemed to accompany Anne's presence. I thought she'd been upstairs all day, but the sound of her footsteps confirmed she was about to enter. "Hey." Anne's voice cut through the silence as she stepped into the kitchen. I glanced up from my phone, my heart skipping a beat as I saw her standing in the doorway, arms crossed over her chest. She looked calm, but there was a spark in her eyes that set my pulse racing. I responded casually, trying to maintain my composure. "What's up?" She shrugged and moved further into the kitchen, her eyes never leaving mine. "Not much, just felt like coming downstairs. It's pretty quiet." I looked up again as she entered, my heart skipping another beat at the sight of her standing there, arms still crossed. She seemed serene, but that spark in her eyes made my heart race. "What's up?" I replied lightly, striving to stay cool. "Just felt like coming downstairs. It's peaceful in here," she said. "Yeah," I agreed, setting my phone on the table. "Catherine and Dad won't be back for a while." Anne glanced at the clock, then at me, a mischievous smirk playing on her lips. "I know," she said in a teasing tone. "That's why I came down." A knot tightened in my stomach, a mix of apprehension and excitement. Her gaze held a playful yet earnest light that both drew me in and unsettled me. She approached the stove, took a glass from the cabinet, and filled it with water, moving with deliberate grace, every step calculated as if she knew I was watching her every move, which I was. I was captivated by her presence, her hair cascading over her shoulders, her lips curling into a knowing smile. "What are you doing here alone?" she asked, sipping her glass and leaning against the counter, her eyes fixed on me. I shrugged, trying to seem nonchalant. She took the glass from the cabinet and filled it with water, moving with a purpose that suggested she was aware of my gaze, and perhaps intended it. I was intrigued by her demeanor, her hair falling over her shoulders, her lips forming that same knowing smile. "What are you doing here by yourself?" she asked again, sipping her water and leaning on the counter, her gaze unwavering. I shrugged, feigning disinterest. "Just passing the time," I said. She nodded, but her next words caught me off guard. "You've been acting weird lately," Anne said, tilting her head with a slight smile. "What do you mean?" I asked, taken aback. "I'm not sure, but it feels like you're avoiding me." I blinked, surprised by her observation. "I'm not avoiding you on purpose," I said. But I realized I might have been distancing myself without meaning to. It was hard to act unaffected when she asked about it. I nodded, forcing a smile, unsure why she was acting this way but sensing an underlying tension. "I'm not avoiding you," I insisted, though my voice wavered. She raised an eyebrow, setting her glass down as if preparing for a deeper conversation. I shifted in my seat, unsure how to proceed. The distance between us felt different now, charged with an unspoken tension I didn't know how to address. I wasn't sure if I was imagining it, or if she felt it too. But I couldn't ignore it. Anne's smile widened as she stepped closer, her eyes glinting with something I couldn't quite place. "I've been distracted," she said softly, her explanation lacking conviction. Her voice was light, but I could tell she was serious, holding something back. "I'm not avoiding you," I said, my voice softer, less certain. She took another step closer, her body now just a few feet from mine, the tension in the room intensifying, creating an electric atmosphere. My heart pounded, and I swallowed hard to keep my nerves in check. "I think you're," she murmured, her eyes locking onto mine. I blinked, stunned by her words. The room felt smaller, her presence overwhelming, making it impossible to think clearly. "I'm not sure I get what you mean," I said. My mind clouded. This was my stepsister, someone I'd lived with for years. Yet, in that moment, she didn't feel like a sister at all. She felt entirely different. "There's no need to pretend, Alex," she said quietly. "I know you feel it too." I froze. My breath caught in my throat as her words sank in. She was right. I'd felt the tension, the unspoken connection building between us for weeks. I'd tried to dismiss it, to convince myself it was nothing. But with her standing so close, her eyes fixed on mine, denial was no longer possible. I opened my mouth to speak, but my voice faltered. Then Anne's fingers brushed lightly against my arm, sending a jolt of electricity through me, quickening my pulse. "You don't have to say anything," she said, a knowing smile spreading across her lips. "Just stop pretending." Before I could respond, Anne leaned in, her lips grazing my cheek in a simple, almost innocent gesture that ignited a firestorm within me. The truth of the moment overwhelmed me, confirming that this was more than just in my head. Her lips lingered for a moment, a tease that made my heart race. I could feel the warmth of her breath against my skin, the faint pressure of her lips, like a ghost of a touch. I was caught in the moment, torn between pulling away and wanting to explore further. I was drawn to her, but I didn't know how to act. "I want more from you," I admitted, at a loss for words. Part of me wanted to step back before things spiraled, while another part desperately wanted her closer. She smiled that sweet, heart-racing grin. "What's wrong?" she asked innocently, though the tension between us was palpable, like crackling static in the air. I started to say we couldn't, but the words felt hollow. My head spun with confusion as I tried to make sense of it all. She flashed a warm, knowing smile that sent my heart racing again. This was wrong, wasn't it? My stepsister. But then she moved closer, her body brushing against mine. I could feel the heat radiating from her, the softness of her touch as she placed a hand gently on my chest. The gesture sent a wave of emotions through me: confusion, excitement, and an unnamed longing. Her gaze was intense, a challenge in her eyes. I swallowed hard, trying to clear my mind, but her presence made it impossible. Her hand slid down my chest, her fingertips tracing a line that set my heart racing faster. "Do I?" I asked softly. Her lips curved into a cheeky smile. "It seems you've been wanting this as much as I have," she said, her words hitting me hard. Guilt and excitement swirled within me, but there was also a profound sense of anticipation. I realized I'd been waiting for this moment without fully acknowledging it. I started to speak, but my voice wavered as Aunt took another step closer, her body pressing against mine. I could feel her heart beating rapidly against my chest, her eyes piercing with desire and curiosity. It was impossible to look away. "You don't have to be scared," she said, her hand sliding up to caress my neck, her fingertip tracing my jawline. "You don't have to pretend anymore." I tried to speak, but she shook her head, her fingers brushing my lips. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice calm and reassuring. "You don't need to say anything." Before I could protest, Anne leaned in and kissed me, her lips tender and reassuring. The kiss was delicate at first, tentative, as if giving me a chance to pull away. But I didn't. Instead, I kissed her back, my hands instinctively moving to her waist, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, deliberate and intense, sending a flood of warmth through me, igniting every nerve. Anne's hands tangled in my hair, her body pressed against mine, stealing my breath. I didn't want to stop. This felt real, thrilling, and utterly out of the ordinary. When we finally parted, we were both breathless, our foreheads touching as time seemed to freeze. "How does it feel?" I asked, my voice barely audible. She smiled, and my heart raced. "I'm not sure," I admitted, "but it feels like everything's changed." The tension that had been building between us had finally erupted, and it felt irreversible. "I don't know," I said, my hands still on her waist. Her smile wavered, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she looked at me with such intensity that my heart raced again. "Why not?" she asked softly. "Why can't we?" Her words sent a rush of confusion and exhilaration through me. "You're my stepsister," I said, my voice weak, more an excuse than an explanation. Anne raised an eyebrow, her grin returning. "You mean there's no biological connection between us? We're just two people. Don't let that stop you from doing what you want." Her logic was disorienting but true. We weren't biologically related, though our parents' marriage bound us. The weight of the situation was undeniable, but her voice was gentle yet firm. "What about Dad and Catherine?" I asked. Her smile faded, and she sighed, stepping back slightly. "I don't know," she admitted quietly. But I know I don't want to pretend nothing's happening between us. Her words stirred a wave of emotions, guilt, confusion, and something deeper I wasn't ready to name. She was right. We couldn't keep ignoring this. What can we do? I asked, my mind reeling. Anne nodded, her eyes softening. We don't have to figure it all out now. We can take it one step at a time, she said, her words calming the storm inside me. Okay, I said softly. One step at a time. She smiled genuinely, and the sight warmed my heart. Oh, we'll figure it out, she murmured. And in that moment, I believed her. But the story didn't end there. In the days following that intense kitchen encounter, I was caught in a haze of anticipation and dread. The tension between Anne and me only grew, fueled by the memory of our forbidden kiss and the undeniable shift in our relationship. We tried to act normal, but when we were in the same room, the air crackled with unspoken desire. Every accidental touch sent shivers down my spine, and I saw the same intensity in Anne's eyes, a magnetic pull that drew us together, even if it wasn't safe. About a week later, I was on the living room couch, trying to focus on the TV but consumed by thoughts of Anne. I could hear her moving in the kitchen, the clinking of dishes and the soft closing of cupboard doors, like a symphony of domesticity that did little to calm me. My father and Catherine were out, leaving the house eerily quiet, amplifying my restlessness. I couldn't stop thinking about her. Her lips, her touch, the way it felt to be alone with her. As I stood to head to my room, Anne emerged from the kitchen, drying her hands on a dish towel. She paused in the doorway, her eyes meeting mine, sending a rush of excitement through me. Are you okay, Alex? She asked, her voice soft but tinged with concern. I nodded, and she stepped into the living room, tossing the dish towel onto a chair and sitting on the couch a few feet away. The air between us buzzed with unspoken longing. My heart raced as she looked at me, unsure what to say. I'd been consumed by thoughts of her since that night in the kitchen, struggling to articulate the shift in our relationship. Finally, I spoke. We need to talk, I said, my voice trembling. Anne leaned forward, her hands on the table, her gaze steady but searching. For a moment, she was silent, the quiet heavy between us. I don't know what to do, she said, her voice mirroring my nerves. I nodded, swallowing hard, my mind grappling for words. We couldn't deny the truth any longer, but I wasn't sure how to navigate what came next.